Hi friend, David here from Learn Stage Lighting, and I'm really pumped, really excited today. We're continuing our series on lighting a mid-sized stage and making a mid-sized stage look like really great. And today I've brought up actually the Onyx training file in Capture. So this is a file that you can use. You can download it from the Onyx site, and we'll have the link here to their support site where you can download this. And you can actually use this for free, the executable, the standalone version, even if you don't own a visualizer, with Onyx to get to know the software and get to know how to use it better. Okay, so it's a really great tool. But I'm not here to toot that horn today. The horn that I'm tooting today is, that sounds terrible, is making a mid-sized stage look great. So if we look at this stage, this is probably, what you would call maybe the larger end of a mid-sized stage. I mean, you can see here, the stage surface itself is pretty large, but the area that the band members are on is not that big. So you can kind of look at it in both lights here, right? Um, and pun totally intended. But the reason I wanted to feature this stage in today's tip is because I'm talking all about height today. Because height is a really big deal when you're changing up different sets. Now, this stage here, if we pop up to the CAD view a little bit, is kind of a traditional, theater type stage. I mean, it's a band stage, but ultimately it kind of looks like a theater to me, where you've got some different pipes with lights on them, some different trusses. They're very symmetrically laid out, and the backdrop is all black. Now that could be a band, an arena show, anything like that. Really, this works for both. But what I want to talk about today is height. Okay, so moving away from the visualizer for a second, how much height do you have in your venue? Whether you're a tiny venue with 15-foot ceilings or a venue that has 25 or 30 feet, using that height well can allow you to create some interesting looks. Now, there's been a trend, and this happens a lot in churches and such, where a lot of people always want to lower the roof, and I'm not always against that, right? Um, One of the easiest things you can do to make a space feel smaller, more intimate, is just take everything. Maybe you take all your backlight here and you just bring it down, right? You just bring it lower. And when you do that and you bring in the curtains or whatever, if you've got those, the look that you end up getting is that the stage looks like you're in a small club. It's kind of like when in the Super Bowl a few years ago, Timberlake was playing. And the lighting designers, the set designers for that show, started him off in this like absurdly little room playing in a really small club setting. And then they blew it up later in the show. They had to move out to the floor and be in the whole stadium, which was huge. And it really grounded, like I talked about in the last video, it really grounded the performance and made it feel bigger than it was because they showed him in a small space first. This is kind of the same concept, right? Maybe for a given show, you have less on the stage and you go, hey, we're going to maybe block in our stage on the sides, right? More, because ultimately this isn't just about height. You could black out, a quarter of your lighting rig on both sides. Just use the 50% in the middle. And it's going to make that stage look smaller. Bring in some curtains, whatever you've got, black out that extra space. And now you've got a small, intimate stage for, a given performance or part of a performance or a couple months or whatever, is in your case. The same thing works with height. You see here, this intimate look, how small it feels when I bring in the height really close like this, right? It feels really intimate. You can see that on both these shots, no matter what seat you're in. If I'm, on the floor here, or I'm back further, and maybe I'm up a little. It makes the space feel small and intimate. You might say, okay, I don't have the ability to make these moves live during a show, and I get that. That's the case for a lot of you, and in a lot of cases for me too. But what you can do is, even in like corporate shows, when we used to do shows, I lit a lot of corporate shows, right? And maybe for a given year of that show, you would bring it in smaller. You would make the same room feel more intimate. And then the next year, you bring that height back up to where it is normally. Or if you have the ability, you can max it out, and you're going to make that face feel bigger. You make it feel so much grander. See how much grander this feels right here compared to this? That's a big difference, isn't it? That's the difference between using the full height in your stage and bringing it down more intimately. And the same goes with your width side to side, okay? Because I get it. A lot of times you might be in a venue, you don't have that height space. You don't have that height, that tall space. But you may have space side to side that you can then use in order to make the stage feel larger or smaller, to grow or shrink it. So even if you're like, okay, maybe for, this show, we can bring the lights down. Maybe, boom, you get rid of that and you use only lights on some truss stands, okay? Because you might say, David, I can't go and bring in these lights and then, move them out, right? I'm in a fixed installation or something like that. I can't just go moving around the height. But maybe the lights are up here, and maybe for a given song, a few songs in the middle of a set or something like that, you turn those lights off. You have maybe some LED washes on these truss sticks, and you use just those for a smaller portion of the set or of the church service. And you make that space feel more intimate. And then, the end of the show comes, or the end of the service, or a more dynamic part, a higher energy part, boom, you bring these lights back in. So whether or not you have the ability, because I don't want this to feel like me saying, okay, you need to have a bunch of money so that you have a system where you can fly things in and out, at intermission or week to week or something like that. You don't have to have that. But ultimately, you can use the way that you place your lights. You can make use of the height that you have in your space to draw attention by only turning lights on and off. Remember, if lights are off and they're dark in a space, then it shrinks the space. It makes them disappear. And we can work with that. We can use that to shrink or expand our space vertically, horizontally, or both, to be able to get a lot more different looks out of the same space. In fact, the same goes here with set designs. I talked a lot about set designs last month in the small venue lighting, and that works for big venues too. Like maybe you've got a set, maybe you've got a space where there's a physical set or a back wall that you've lit or something like that, okay? There's going to be a difference, a pretty good sized difference between lighting up those set panels or that wall, filling that with light like a traditional cyc on a stage, and then blacking that out, okay? And I'll actually bring in some clips here from another capture demo file that I really like that is a stage, or maybe I'll build one, that is a stage where they do that. And it looks great. It looks awesome. And so if you've enjoyed this tip, be sure to subscribe here and let me know below, right in the comments, how in your space you're going to use one of these tips in the future here to make your stage look bigger or smaller, and even both within the same service or the same show. If you like what we've been throwing down, be sure you subscribe, like this video, and if you're new with lighting, this is really important. Head over to learnstagelighting.com, links right here on the end screen, and I've got a free guide to get you started with lighting that I want to get into your hands. So help yourself there, grab that free guide, and I'll see you guys in our next video here in this series where we're going to talk about reduce, reuse, recycle. How does that apply to your lighting? We'll find out. We'll see you there. Thanks.